Now, there is a primary election in Portsmouth on June 9th. And longtime delegate Johnny Joannou, who represents parts of Portsmouth and Norfolk, and he's been in the General Assembly since 1976. Has served as both a House member, a state Senate member, now a House member again, a mainstay there of the Democratic Party. And Joannou was being challenged by former Portsmouth Councilman Steve Herdick for his House of Delegates seat. This will be decided in a June 9th primary. Now, the John Fredericks Show is proud and excited to say that we give our unequivocal political endorsement to re-electing Johnny Joannou for House of Delegates member in his Portsmouth, Norfolk district. Now, why are we getting involved in this race, right? This is a Democratic primary because Joannou has stood tall on the things that matters. He's owned by no one. He answers to one group, and that's the voters of his district. He doesn't care what the political bosses say. He doesn't care what Terry McAuliffe says, and quite frankly, he doesn't care what Bill Howe says. He's his own man. And I tell you what, if there's anything that we need in politics is people who stand up for the constituents they serve and are not a tool of coalitions or money or lobbyists or party bosses or anybody else. You can't, if you're a lobbyist and you have something to say to Joannou, you better make sense. You better not come in there with a check. He'll take your check like anybody else, but he's not beholden to anybody. Now, Joannou, one of the Democrats who stood firm against tolls. He has been against tolls and has voted against every single toll in his entire career, including he was fighting this disaster in Portsmouth. These tolls which are killing his city, he was fighting those. These tolls in Portsmouth are a concoction of Bob McDonnell and Captain Chaos. Sean Cannot and Joannou fought those. If you go all the way back to 1976, every single opportunity that Johnny Joannou had to fight tolls anywhere, he fought them. He was opposed to them. You can't find one vote anywhere where Joannou was for a toll in his entire life. This goes back to 76. This guy's been around a while. There's toughness there. There's institutional knowledge there. Let me tell you another thing that Joannou did. Not only has he fought every toll, which I believe that tolls are a disaster for a lot of reasons. Now, I was for the transportation compromise in 2013. Everybody knows that because you got to fund roads. Our infrastructure in Virginia is crumbling, and you have to find a way after 30 years to fund roads. You don't find the money with loose change under the couch. And you don't fund it by cutting school education funds back. Stupid. You got to fund it. That's why I was for that, and I'll stand by that to the end of the earth. But I'm opposed to these tolls because they destroy communities and they're punitive. And when you look at the Portsmouth tolling situation, I got Luzzatto coming out at 7:35. It's a complete disaster. Now, I'm going to take anybody's phone calls on Joannou, 888-480-JOHN, 888-480-5646. Let me tell you something else about Joannou. Why I am such an enthusiastic supporter of him and encourage anybody in the district to get out and vote for him June 9th. Johnny Joannou was the only Democrat who stood up to Terry McAuliffe, David Toscano, and the other party bosses in the Democrat Party and said no to Medicaid expansion. The only one. You know why he did that? Because he said you can't rely on the federal government and it's going to bankrupt the state. And here's the other thing he said. He said, my constituents are working people. They don't want handouts from the government. They want jobs. They want jobs. They want opportunity, and they want to be able to buy their own health insurance. They don't want a handout from the government. And Joannou stood tall for that. And he's a man of unbelievable character and conviction. And we're lucky to have this guy. Education. He's helped negotiate a budget that increased funding to local schools and included a 1.5 salary increase for teachers and staff. See, that's where I want my government money going, to pay teachers more money. Now, on taxes, the guy is an anti-tax machine. He has held the line on taxes his entire career. And he says, if you talk to him, he's a middle class guy. And he says, I know that many families and businesses are struggling to make ends meet, which is why I treat the state budget like I treat my family budget, with a careful eye on no extra spending. Now, he was in favor of the transportation compromise in 2013, as I was, and many common sense conservatives were, because you got to fix the roads in Southeast Virginia. But as far as taxes are concerned, he's held firm. Now, here's the thing. If you're in Johnny Joannou's district, which is parts of Portsmouth and Norfolk, if you're in his district, and check it out, you want to vote for Joannou on June the 9th. Now, it doesn't matter what you are. All you have to be is a registered voter. That's it. A registered voter. You can be a Republican, an independent, a Democrat. You can be anything. It doesn't matter. And if you're a Republican or an independent or a common sense Democrat, you absolutely should circle June 9th on your calendar and find out where you vote in your normal polling place in the primary and vote to reelect Johnny Joannou. Now, his challenger is an opportunist. Steve Herodick has run for everything that you can possibly name. This is another candidate like Susan Stimson in search of an office someplace. He just searches around trying to find something to run for. Former councilman, former this, former that, ran for this, ran for that, ran for this, ran for that. He's like the Harold Stassen of Portsmouth politics. The guy's the last thing that we need in the State House. Now he's got a coalition of labor and immigrant groups flexing their muscles, giving him money, trying to help him out from outside the district. He's got the usual suspects of liberals and pro-amnesty people pumping money into his campaign, trying to unseat Joannou, who has stood firm for legal immigration, for lower taxes, and for no tolls. And if you live in his district, if you're a Republican, an independent, or a Democrat, if you're a registered voter and you have common sense, returning Johnny Joannou to the House of Delegates is absolutely critical on June 9th. Now, there's no Republican opposition in this race. So basically, whoever wins the district primary on the Democratic side represents the district. So the John Fredericks Show and me personally urge my listeners, if you're in the district, vote for Joannou June 9th.